It was April 29th, 1945, 2 in the morning. Deep beneath the burning streets of Berlin, a man sat at a small desk and dictated his last will and testament. Above him, Soviet artillery shook the earth so violently that dust rained from the ceiling with every explosion. The walls trembled, the lights flickered, and Adolf Hitler, the man who had plunged the world into the most catastrophic war in human history, calmly signed his name on a document he believed would justify everything he had done. He was not afraid. He was not crying. He was furious. Furious that his generals had failed him. Furious that the German people had not been worthy of his vision. And somewhere in that twisted mind, he still believed he would be remembered as a hero. He would be dead in less than 22 hours. What happened inside the Führerbunker in those final 48 hours is one of the most extraordinary, disturbing, and haunting stories of the 20th century. Not because of grand battles or sweeping military movements, but because of what it reveals about the human capacity for self-deception, loyalty, betrayal, and madness. This is not the story you learned in school. This is the story of what really happened down in the dark. To understand those final hours, you need to feel the world collapsing above. By April 28, 1945, Berlin was not a city anymore. It was a wound. Soviet forces under Marshal Georgy Zhukov had encircled it completely. 2.5 million Red Army soldiers pressed inward from every direction. The Reichstag, the symbolic heart of German power, was barely 400 meters from the bunker entrance. Street by street, building by building, Soviet infantry were fighting their way toward Hitler's last hiding place. The city burned day and night. The smell of smoke, ash, and death hung over everything. And 30 meters underground, in a series of small concrete rooms reinforced with meters of steel and earth, the man responsible for it all sat waiting. The Führerbunker was not luxurious. People imagined some underground palace. It was not. It was cramped, damp, and suffocating. 18 small rooms, low ceilings, the constant thrum of diesel generators that filled every room with noise and exhaust fumes. The ventilation system pumped and filtered air, but it always smelled stale and metallic. Maps covered every available surface. And the people inside, they existed in a kind of collective madness. Some were drunk, some were weeping, some were still writing military orders for armies that no longer existed. Hitler himself had changed almost beyond recognition. Those who had served him for years were shocked by what they saw. His left hand trembled uncontrollably. He walked with a hunched shuffle. His face was gray. His eyes, once described as magnetic and terrifying, now appeared glazed and distant. He had been abusing a cocktail of medications administered by his personal physician, Dr. Theodore Morell, for years: amphetamines, opioids, barbiturates, cocaine eye drops. Morell himself had already fled the bunker on April 21st, sensing the end. Without his doctor, Hitler's physical and psychological deterioration accelerated rapidly in those final days. And then came the betrayal that shattered everything. On the night of April 28th, Hitler received a message that made his hands shake with rage. Heinrich Himmler, the man who ran the SS, the man Hitler had trusted more than almost anyone, had been secretly negotiating with the Western Allies through a Swedish intermediary named Count Folke Bernadotte. Himmler believed Hitler was dying and had offered to surrender German forces in the West. He had done this without Hitler's knowledge, without his permission. The most loyal of all Nazis had tried to cut a deal behind his back. Hitler erupted. Witnesses described a screaming rage of terrifying intensity. He called Himmler the most treacherous man in the entire history of Germany. He demanded immediate action. Himmler's SS liaison in the bunker, Hermann Fegelein, who was also the husband of Eva Braun's sister, had already tried to escape Berlin in civilian clothes with stolen valuables. He was dragged back, interrogated, and shot. Hitler signed Himmler's expulsion from the Nazi Party and ordered his arrest. In the final hours of his life, even the architects of the Holocaust were turning on each other. But here is what almost no one talks about. Even in those moments of fury, Hitler continued to function with a kind of bureaucratic precision that is deeply unsettling. He dictated two documents that night: his personal will and his political testament. In the political testament, he expelled both Himmler and Göring, who had also attempted to negotiate independently. He appointed Admiral Karl Donitz as his successor. He laid out instructions for a new German government. And then, in a passage that remains one of the most chilling pieces of text in modern history, he blamed the entire war on the Jews. Not on his own decisions, not on the invasions, the massacres, the death camps. The Jews, even facing death, the ideology held. The personal will contain something far more human, and in its own way, far more disturbing. He announced that he would be marrying Eva Braun. Eva Braun had followed Hitler into the bunker voluntarily. She did not have to be there. She was not a political figure, not a military commander, not a person with any official role in the Nazi state. She was his companion, the woman who had loved Adolf Hitler for over 12 years. A woman who wrote in her diary during quieter times about movie stars and fashion and her little dogs. And she had chosen to come to Berlin when everyone else was fleeing. She had told her friends she would die with him. They all thought she was being dramatic. She was not. The wedding took place just after midnight on April 29th. A city official named Walter Wagner, who had been pulled from the Berlin Volksturm militia to perform the ceremony, arrived still wearing his military uniform. He was reportedly trembling. The ceremony lasted only a few minutes in a small map room. Hitler and Eva Braun both confirmed they were of pure Aryan descent, a grotesque administrative requirement even in the final hours of the Reich. They signed the marriage certificate. Joseph Goebbels and Martin Bormann served as witnesses. Eva Braun signed her name, then instinctively wrote the letter B before correcting herself and writing Hitler. After everything, she almost forgot she was becoming Eva Hitler. Then they had a small celebration. Champagne was poured. Former secretaries and staff joined them. People who were facing their own deaths sat in a concrete room underground, toasting a marriage. Some of them were weeping. Some were smiling. One secretary later described the atmosphere as something she could never explain, somewhere between a funeral and a dream. The morning of April 30th arrived with no ceremony. Hitler met with his staff. He gave his final military briefing, though by now it was pure theater. There were no armies to command. He said his goodbyes to the bunker staff, moving down a line of secretaries and officers, shaking hands, murmuring a few words to each. Several witnesses noted that he seemed strangely calm. Whatever storm had raged in him the night before had passed. He had made his decision. He was at peace with it in a way that disturbed everyone who saw it. At around 2:30 in the afternoon, Hitler and Eva Braun withdrew to his private study. A small room, a simple sofa, a portrait of Frederick the Great on the wall, the Prussian King Hitler had idolized. The staff gathered in the corridor outside. They heard a single gunshot. When the door was opened, Adolf Hitler was dead. He had shot himself through his right temple. Eva Braun had taken cyanide. She had not wanted to be shot. She lay with her legs tucked under her on the sofa, her face slightly contorted from the poison. Two dogs belonging to the household had also been killed with cyanide earlier, including Hitler's beloved German shepherd, Blondie. Hitler had apparently wanted to test the cyanide capsules on the dog first to make sure they worked. Even in death, the details are monstrous. The bodies were carried up the 4 flights of stairs to the Reich Chancellery Garden. Soviet artillery was still falling. The men who carried the bodies had to work in bursts, sheltering when the shelling intensified. Petrol was poured over the bodies in accordance with Hitler's explicit instructions. He did not want to be displayed like Mussolini, whose body had been hung upside down in Milan just 2 days earlier. He did not want to become a trophy. The petrol was lit, a small, unplanned funeral, attended by a handful of men in a burning garden, while the world fell apart overhead. No speeches, no music, no ceremony, just fire. But here is the twist that history books rarely linger on. It almost didn't end there. In the confusion of the final days, several senior Nazis made their own pacts with death or with survival. Goebbels and his wife Magda chose to die in the bunker the following day, May 1st. But before they did, Magda Goebbels committed what remains one of the most incomprehensible acts of the entire war. She administered cyanide to her 6 children. All of them were under 12 years old. Their names were Helga, Hildegard, Helmut, Holdine, Hedwig, and Hydra. She dressed them in their night clothes, gave them what she told them was medicine, and killed them one by one, because she believed a world without National Socialism was not a world worth living in. Joseph Goebbels then walked out of the bunker and was shot, reportedly at his own request. 2 more bodies were burned in the garden. Martin Bormann attempted to escape through the chaos of the fallen city. His fate remained disputed for decades. For years there were rumors that he had survived, fled to South America, built a new life under a false name. The mystery endured until 1998, when DNA analysis confirmed that a skeleton found in Berlin in 1972 was indeed Bormann. He had died trying to flee on the night of May 1st. He got barely a few blocks from the bunker. The Soviet forces reached the bunker on May 2nd. They found a maze of rooms, still containing the detritus of those final days. Half-eaten meals, empty bottles, documents scattered across desks, cyanide capsules that had not been used, personal photographs. The sofa where Hitler died was photographed and taken as a trophy. Soviet investigators pieced together what had happened with testimony from captured bunker staff. Stalin, when briefed, reportedly refused to believe Hitler was dead for years. He feared it was a trick, a deception, a way to escape. He could not accept that the man he had fought across an entire continent had simply sat down on a sofa and pulled a trigger. And that is perhaps the most haunting truth of all those 48 hours. The man who commanded armies of millions, who reshaped the map of Europe through terror and murder, who launched a war that killed over 70 million people, ended in a small damp room underground, attended by a handful of frightened loyalists, and burned in a garden while the city he had promised to protect turned to ash around him. No final stand, no Wagnerian climax, no dramatic last words recorded for history, just a gunshot and silence. The bunker itself was partially demolished by the Soviets and later by East German authorities, who feared it would become a place of neo-Nazi pilgrimage. Today, a small parking lot and an information panel mark the spot in Berlin. Ordinary cars park above the place where the Third Reich ended. Children walk past it every day without knowing what lies beneath their feet. The earth holds its secrets, but sometimes the earth remembers everything.